Pyramid Head. Pyramid Head is a terrifying bruiser of a grappler who excels at crushing his opponents with overwhelming amounts of burst damage, all while either forcing them into a corner or crippling his opponent's ability to run away. With the great knife in hand, Pyramid Head is more than capable of catching his prey from either a range that's difficult to trade from, or up close and personal with his multitude of command grabs. And thanks to the strength he packs into each attack, it won't take many catches to put his opponent to the guillotine. This power and range is in turn mixed with a variety of utility options that are designed to cripple your opponent's mobility and leave them wide open to your dangerously powerful attacks. As while you might not sport the speed to chase enemies down, you won't have to worry about that if they can't run away. Despite these terrifying upsides, however, Pyramid Head is strapped with some notable weaknesses that might prove difficult to overcome. While he can be highly oppressive when he's in control of a match, Pyramid Head's stature as a sluggish super heavyweight might make it difficult to maintain control for long periods of time, as his very slow mobility and fairly poor frame data can make it incredibly difficult to deal with characters who can space him effectively. On top of that, Pyramid Head's offstage presence is very poor thanks to his awkward aerial mobility, with this not only making it a challenge to get back to the stage if launched, but in turn, also make it difficult to prevent his opponent from getting back to the ledge if he's the one who's edgeguarding. This can lead to situations of all or nothing offense, which can result in hasty buttons being thrown as a means of skipping the edgeguarding phase altogether. And if your opponent punishes these buttons, your chances of surviving goes down drastically. As a Pyramid Head player, it's your job to use your enormous buttons and abundance of utility options to keep your opponents on their toes and keep a firm control over a specific chunk of the stage, all while slowly advancing this chunk forward and giving your opponent nowhere to run. This kind of playstyle is slow, methodical, but most of all, it's meant to feel like you're in control of an indestructible monster. And when it comes time for the inevitable confrontation, you are a fighter that players will need to never underestimate, should they not wish to meet their end at the hands of the executioner himself. Pyramid Head is a large humanoid character, with his imposing figure standing just a bit taller than characters like Kazuya and Captain Falcon. A terrifying manifestation of guilt born from the desire for punishment, the near-indestructible Red Pyramid Thing, or Pyramid Head as he has come to be coined by both the games and the Silent Hill fandom, is a creature who has left a long-lasting impression on not only fans of Silent Hill, but fans of video game horror in general. While originally created for a single appearance in Silent Hill 2, the monster's immense popularity and marketability would lead to him showing up in various ways long after James Sunderland's trip to Silent Hill, either directly or as a major inspiration. And as a result, Pyramid Head is often the first thing people think of when they hear the name Silent Hill. Despite this, however, there is a lot of contention revolving around Pyramid Head and his appearances beyond Silent Hill 2, as even the monster's creator, Masahiro Ito, would go on to protest against these inclusions as he was designed quote-unquote only for James. Some fans believe, however, that the idea of Pyramid Head, along with the many monsters that have roamed the town of Silent Hill, don't simply disappear once their quote-unquote creators leave, but instead remain behind until the time they're needed again. Several of the series' comics seem to support this idea, but it's currently unknown as to whether or not they're canon. But thankfully, Smash isn't a game where we need to worry about this quote-unquote canon. Much like all the other fighters in Smash, Pyramid Head isn't the real monster, but instead a trophy brought to life by Master Hand, and his goal here in Smash is to punish his opponents for their sins. No need to worry about the absence of James this time, although I did still find a way to sneak him into this design. Moving on to his basics as a fighter, Pyramid Head's design here in Smash is mainly pulling from two games, with these being his original appearance in Silent Hill 2 and his appearance as a boss in Silent Hill the Arcade, with this creating a version of Pyramid Head that not only keeps the creepy aspects of his original design alive, but also adds on to his terrifying presence while making him fit better into a fighting game. On top of this, Pyramid Head will also sport some unique visual aspects that the monster received in his Dead by Daylight appearance, namely the way that blood, rust, and barbed wire are used to physically embody guilt and punishment. As for his fighting style, Pyramid Head is designed to feel like a rugged yet ruthless combatant, with his incredible physical strength allowing him to swing his trademark weapon, the Great Knife, around with an incredible amount of force. This isn't the only weapon that Pyramid Head will be using in combat either, as he'll also be making use of the Great Spear to skewer opponents from a range, and provide the terrifying Executioner with a weapon that's notably faster and easier to handle, in exchange for being fairly weaker than his iconic blade. Speaking of said blade, the Great Knife's damage is only matched by its fantastic range, with the length of this blade being only second to that of Sephiroth's Masamune. As a result, some might even question how Pyramid Head even works as a grappler, as such a massive range might not even seem like it befits such an archetype. Well, aside from the fact that huge range isn't something new to the grappler archetype, Pyramid Head's ability to use his opponent's habits against them, near unmatchable burst damage, while struggling to actually reach said damage, puts him in line perfectly with the grappler archetype, and that doesn't even take into account that Pyramid Head sports multiple command grabs. To round out Pyramid Head's basics, there's one last thing that needs to be brought into account, and that's the fact that Pyramid Head is a character that is never seen to move past a slow, lumbering walk. As a result, some have called into question how such a character can maneuver around the screen in a freeform game like Smash, and thankfully, there might just be a solution to this problem: the Fog World and the Otherworld. For those who aren't familiar with the lore of Silent Hill, the Fog World is the name given to a supernatural phenomenon that occurs around Toluca Lake, with this fog blurring the lines between dreams and reality and allowing elements of the subconscious to manifest into existence. This odd plane of existence can, on occasion, shift into a darker version known as the Otherworld, which is shown to transform the town of Silent Hill into a hellscape of nightmarish delusions, with it being altered to suit the subconscious of those trapped within its grasp. It's one of the most horrifying aspects of the Silent Hill series, and it's this warped plane of existence that will give Pyramid Head the tools he needs to move around the stage in a fittingly unpredictable fashion. For example, Pyramid Head's run will have the monster rush forward on a wave of rust and decay, with this masking his seemingly slow movement as his body exudes waves of fog. On top of that, Pyramid Head's poor first jump is offset by a huge second jump that will have the monster be launched up into the air by a blast of rust and barbed wire, allowing him to cover a surprisingly large range in little time. This is all a direct result of Pyramid Head using the subconscious of his opponent against them, and it's a fantastic way to bypass what is easily the biggest hurdle when trying to incorporate Pyramid Head into a game like Smash. It's also a major aspect of Silent Hill that has been a part of the series since its inception, so even though he might only have one appearance in the main series, Pyramid Head feels like a character that encompasses the entirety of the series itself. In terms of mobility options, Pyramid Head has 2 jumps, all while lacking any extra movement options. Guilt is a feeling that can eat away at a person's mental health if left unchecked for too long. A gripping sensation of constant worry and unhappiness over past actions that may or may not have actually been a result of your decisions. And the more you attempt to fight these feelings, to deny the past or absolve yourself of things beyond your control, the more these feelings will eat away at you, and the harder it will be to dig yourself out of the hole of your own creation. I'm sure you weren't expecting a psychology lesson when clicking on a Smash Moveset video, but I assure you it all makes sense, as Pyramid Head's character mechanic is a fighting game equivalent of this self-destructive habit, and it's called Resonating Guilt. As Pyramid Head is a being born out of a desire for punishment, his purpose is not something that will be denied, regardless of how much his opponent tries to fight back against him. And as Pyramid Head takes damage and starts to fall behind in percent, his resilience will shine through as he will not only gain weight, but a variety of small yet helpful buffs depending on how far he falls behind. This can keep Pyramid Head in the fight for far longer than any other character in the game, and although it doesn't save the monster from being juggled or gimped off stage, it does increase his stage presence and make him a fighter that you can never take lightly. As for how exactly Resonating Guilt works, this is a multi-level mechanic that will grow in strength each time Pyramid Head falls behind by 15% damage, with each 15% interval counting as a level of guilt and maxing out at a guilt level of 4, or a 60% damage difference. With each level of guilt earned, Pyramid Head will add on 7 weight units to his total weight, with this maxing out at 28 weight units, and turning Pyramid Head into the heaviest character in the game by a notable margin. On top of this, Pyramid Head will gain access to unique passives at certain percent intervals, including passive Tough Guy armor at a 30% deficit, fully armored smash attacks at a 45% deficit, and once Resonating Guilt is maxed out at 60%, Pyramid Head will gain access to a flat 20% damage boost, allowing the monster to close the gap in only a couple of hits and use his opponent's strength against them, playing into his grappler playstyle and making every potential hit a serious threat to your opponent's well-being. This comeback mechanic not only gives Pyramid Head a chance to make up for lost momentum and make every hit count, as the percent deficit works regardless of the circumstances. It will not give you a buff if you're behind in stocks though, so you'll still have to put in the work if you hope to clutch out a win. Resonating Guilt will also alter the effects of a couple of Pyramid Head's attacks, but I'll discuss that more when we get to his specials. But for now, you've got a good idea of what Pyramid Head's playstyle and game plan are meant to be. Use your massive buttons to challenge opponents whenever you have an opening, and if your opponent manages to get an early lead, stay calm and use your opponent's habits against them. And once you have your opponent in a pinch, use your near unmatchable damage output to deliver the punishment they so richly deserve. Now that Pyramid Head's basics have concluded, it's now time to move on to Pyramid Head's normals and talk about the attacks that will make up this terrifying combatant. Pyramid Head's normals will mainly be comprised of attacks utilizing his main weapon of choice, his iconic Great Knife. This massive blade is fully disjointed and will provide the executioner with some of the strongest pokes in the game. And when it's paired with the Great Spear, Pyramid Head has all he needs to check his opponent in the neutral and cover his approach, should they not be thrown out haphazardly. Pyramid Head's neutral combo is Red Slash, a 2-hit combination that will have Pyramid Head attack using a fairly fast backhand strike with his free hand, all before following up with a powerful horizontal slash with the Great Knife to launch foes away. This deceptive 1-2 punch is one of Pyramid Head's safest buttons at close range, with the second slash being powerful enough to confirm kills at higher percent and covering some solid range in the process. On top of that, the range difference between the jab and the slash can make it a pretty great whiff punishing tool if timed properly, but it should be noted that as your opponent's percent goes up, it will become hard to link both of these attacks together, so make sure your opponent doesn't DI away from the second hit. Pyramid Head's forward tilt is Rusted Cutter, a brutally powerful neutral option that will have Pyramid Head swing his Great Knife out in front of himself, with this attack covering a wide range and dealing some heavy damage to any opponent who gets in its path. Thanks to its blend of range, damage, and its disjoint being next to impossible to trade with on some characters, this is Pyramid Head's best approach tool and one of his safest ways to confirm kills at higher percents, or even lower percent should he be boosted by Resonating Guilt. While that's the case, however, this move suffers from a slow startup and an equally as slow recovery speed, meaning you'll need to carefully pick and choose when you want to throw this out, especially against characters that can easily close the distance and force you into a disadvantaged state. Pyramid Head's up tilt is Rising Skewer, another strong neutral option that will have Pyramid Head swap to his Great Spear, all before performing a Rising Strike that will launch any opponent in its path up into the air. This move covers a large vertical range, with its disjointed hitbox allowing Pyramid Head to challenge opponents trying to jump in on him or camp above him effectively, all while keeping the executioner out of harm's way. This can be one of Pyramid Head's strongest buttons if used effectively, but its short horizontal range, mixed with a slow cooldown, makes it an attack that's fairly easy to punch if it whiffs or is blocked by an opponent on ground level. Pyramid Head's down tilt is Triangle Slash, a deceptive poke option that will have Pyramid Head perform a sweeping slash with his Great Knife, with the force of this attack causing him to spin around and launch any nearby opponent with solid force. This attack will hit both in front of and above Pyramid Head as he attacks, providing the player with a solid neutral option that can stop both pokes and jump-ins if they position themselves correctly. On top of that, this move's notable speed advantage over his forward tilt makes it far safer to throw it in exchange for less range and damage, but it can still get punished if it's blocked or whiffed at close range, so mind your positioning. Pyramid Head's dash attack is Punishment Hunter, a ruthless attack option that will have Pyramid Head rush forward a short distance, his Great Knife extended out in front of himself and launching anything in its path with some heavy force. This move sports both fantastic power and great range, with its huge disjointed hitbox being able to easily stuff buttons, and turn even the smallest mistakes into a potential kill confirm at mid to high percents, with the animation itself being a reference to an attack Pyramid Head is shown to perform in both the Silent Hill films and Silent Hill the arcade. However, it's not a move that you can just throw out whenever you want, as its slow recovery makes it easy to punish if it either whiffs or gets blocked at close range, so try to use it only when you have some room between you and your opponent. For his get-up attacks, Pyramid Head will attack around himself with various attacks with his Great Knife, all while performing a sweeping slash for his ledge attack. Pyramid Head's smash attacks will have the executioner show off a glimpse of his true physical potential, with his Great Knife and Great Spear sporing attacks that can kill incredibly early if they catch an opponent at specific spots on a stage. Despite this, however, they're far slower than his already slow normals, so picking and choosing when to use these attacks could mean the difference between who ends up losing their stock. Pyramid Head's forward smash is Crushing Sin, a devastating attack that will let Pyramid Head grip his Great Knife with both hands, all before performing a huge overhead slash that will create an explosion of punishment once the blade hits the floor. With its incredible blend of range and damage, this is one of Pyramid Head's strongest kill confirms in an attack that's very difficult to trade with from mid-range, as on top of the length of the Great Knife, the explosion of blood, rust, and barbed wire will extend the attack's hitbox forward and add on to its disjoint. Despite this, however, this move's incredibly slow recovery speed is a huge detriment to its viability as an attack, so whiffing this move at even mid-range can leave Pyramid Head vulnerable against a majority of the cast. Pyramid Head's up smash is Great Arc, another devastating attack that will let Pyramid Head perform a wide overhead slash with his Great Knife, with this move striking from front to back and covering his entire hurtbox in the process. This attack, while simple in design, can deal very heavy damage in a huge area of effect, allowing the player to punish a variety of get-up and tech options from a range that's difficult to challenge head-on. However, much like his forward tilt, this move's biggest weakness is its slow recovery speed, so unless you've got a sizable gap between you and your opponent, it's best to not casually throw out this attack. Finally, Pyramid Head's down smash is Pointed Penance, a tricky yet powerful attack that will let Pyramid Head plunge his Great Spear into the ground, causing a huge pile of rust, blood, and barbed wire to well up from below, all before a massive wave of jagged spikes juts out from the Crimson Pool. This attack will cover both sides of Pyramid Head simultaneously, with its great range and notable speed advantage making it Pyramid Head's safest smash attack by a notable margin. Despite this, however, it will in turn lack the incredible launch power of the Great Knife, and while it can be used as a kill confirm, you'll need to work a bit harder to reach that threshold. Once the attack concludes, Pyramid Head will then proceed to push the Great Spear into the pool of punishment entirely, all before pulling out the Great Knife from the puddle and returning to his idle animation. As should be expected from a character with middling ground mobility, Pyramid Head's aerial mobility is very limited outside of the surprising range of his second jump, and thanks to the restrictive properties of both the Great Knife and the Great Spear, the player will need to commit to Pyramid Head's aerial should they wish to make the most of them. Despite this, however, these moves will pack a serious punch, all while sporting the same great ranges as grounded normals, and if telegraphed correctly, these attacks can provide Pyramid Head with some surprisingly strong landing options. Pyramid Head's neutral air is Wild Slice, a versatile aerial option that will have Pyramid Head perform a horizontal slash with his Great Knife, with the force of the slash being strong enough to spin Pyramid Head around and cover both sides of himself simultaneously. This move will cover a wide range around Pyramid Head as he attacks, and with a fairly decent startup speed mixed with a solid damage output, this is Pyramid Head's safest aerial option and, by extent, his safest landing option. But while this move can be effective if used correctly, it's best used out of a full hop, as landing with this move too quickly will lead to longer landing leg and make it easier to punish. Pyramid Head's forward air is Guillotine Swing, a very powerful aerial attack that will let Pyramid Head perform a downward vertical slash with the Great Knife, with the slash covering a wide range and dealing very heavy damage on hit. This move will sport two different launch angles, with one launching the opponent horizontally, while the other will act as a meteor smash, spiking opponents on hit and launching them straight down. With the launch angle you get depending on when the attack connects and how close your opponent is to you. As for its stats, this move's incredible damage makes it one of Pyramid Head's strongest aerial kill confirms, with its solid range allowing it to win trades and effectively edgeguard opponents trying to recover high. But while it's very effective if it lands, its slow startup mixed with a long recovery animation keep it from being an offensive button, and instead one designed more for careful spacing and defensive play. Pyramid Head's up air is Impaling March, a long-range anti-air that will have Pyramid Head thrust a Great Spear up into the air, with this move covering a large vertical range and launching opponents upwards on hit. This attack will trade the launch power of the Great Knife for a fairly average startup speed and an incredible amount of range, allowing the executioner to effectively challenge opponents trying to recover high or camp above him. And don't think that lack of power keeps this move from confirming kills, as it can easily close out stocks against any opponent it catches near the top of the screen. This incredible disjoint also makes it next to impossible to challenge if the Pyramid Head player spaces themselves correctly, but this increase in speed can prove useless if you cancel this move too early, as its landing leg is still fairly long. Pyramid Head's back air is Rusted Reversal, an incredibly powerful aerial reversal that will have Pyramid Head flip around in midair, attacking with a powerful spinning slash that will cover a huge range and deal some very heavy damage on contact. This huge amount of power is paired with a hitbox that's fully disjointed, making it hard to challenge and incredibly effective at securing kills, with it being able to kill some of the game's lightest characters as early as 20% if he catches them off stage with it. Just mind that horrendous landing leg, as choosing to land with this attack is all but guaranteed to get you punished if the attack is either blocked or it whiffs. Finally, Pyramid Head's down air is Executioner's Touch, another very powerful aerial option that will have Pyramid Head perform a downward arcing slash with a Great Knife, with this attack covering a huge range and dealing some very heavy damage on contact. This dangerous strike will spike any opponent who is unlucky enough to be in its path, with its range allowing the player to catch opponents far below the ledge and close out stocks very early, thanks especially to its spike power being on par with the likes of Ganondorf, Donkey Kong, and Byleth. While it can be dangerous if used effectively, however, it's also Pyramid Head's only real edge-guarding option against the opponents they are trying to recover low, with this being thanks to his high gravity and high cumulative recovery. So if your opponent recovers outside of this attack's reach, there's not much you can do to stop them from making it back to the ledge. That speed also makes this attack a horrendous landing option, so it's best to refrain from using it as such. Pyramid Head will grab his opponent with one arm, lifting them off the ground with his impressive strength while choking his caught opponent for his pummel. As for his throws, Pyramid Head will use his raw physical strength to crush his opponent's resolve, or spine, whichever one comes first, as he tosses his opponents around with incredible force. Thanks to this, Pyramid Head's throws will deal high damage, with two of them even working as solid kill options should he manage to snag an opponent in his grasp. And that's not even taking into account the addition of a very powerful setup option that can put your opponent in a world of punishment. Pyramid Head's forward throw is Repressed Rage, a simple yet powerful throw option that will have Pyramid Head heavily increase his grip, crushing his opponent's head before slamming them into the floor. This throw's damage and knockback are fairly strong, with it having the potential to secure kills a higher percent should you have your opponents back to the ledge. But given Pyramid Head's slow mobility and fire barrier corner pressure options, it's not a throw you're going to be using very often. Pyramid Head's up throw is Center Scrapper, another simple yet powerful throw option that will have Pyramid Head drag his opponent along the ground face first, all before violently tossing them up into the air. Like his forward throw, this option can be used to kill confirm at higher percents, and potentially close out stocks even earlier if you catch your opponent on a platform. But unlike his forward throw, this is Pyramid Head's safest vertical kill option and a great way to throw opponents into the effective damage range of his anti-airs. As a result, this is one of Pyramid Head's stronger throw options and a great way to throw your opponent off guard. And as a grappler, you're a character that can greatly benefit from hasty decisions. Pyramid Head's back throw is Bloody Cleave, an incredibly powerful throw option that will have Pyramid Head perform a wide swing with his Great Knife, with the flat end of the blade slamming into the opponent and launching them behind the executioner as he spins around. This is Pyramid Head's strongest throw by a notable margin, with it being able to secure kills at reasonable percents, and even earlier if the executioner has his back to the ledge. A position he's likely going to find himself in quite often, especially against more aggressive foes. As a result, this is one of Pyramid Head's strongest reversals, and one of the quickest ways the executioner can turn a match around. So if you're going to pressure the monster, be sure to do so in moderation, should you not want all your efforts to be tossed aside. Finally, Pyramid Head's down throw is Rusted Cage, a unique throw option that will have Pyramid Head create a puddle of bloody punishment below his dangling opponent, all before forcing them down into the ground as the guilt begins to rust and harden, locking the opponent in place and leaving them in a buried state. This throw, if used effectively, can be one of Pyramid Head's strongest kill setups and one of the last things your opponent wants to be on the receiving end of, as burying an opponent at high percents makes it next to impossible to escape whatever follow-up the executioner chooses to use. As a result, this is going to be the throw you'll be using a majority of the time you manage to land a grab, although it can be punished if you try to use it at low percents. We've now reached Pyramid Head's specials, and this is where the terrifying executioner will truly blend the lines between dream and reality as he taps into the power of the otherworld, with this influence allowing Pyramid Head to materialize hatred and punishment into dangerous attacks. From dangerous command grabs to a variety of crippling attacks to even a deceptively strong recovery, the blend of Pyramid Head's incredible strength with these otherworldly abilities can crush your opponent's morale in a variety of ways. Starting with his neutral special, Pyramid Head will coalesce his opponent's guilt and use it against them, with this powerful command grab locking opponents down and leaving them wide open to further damage, should they not be able to accept their sins. Misty Remains. With this, Pyramid Head will grip his Great Knife with both hands before driving it deep into the ground, causing a bubbling puddle of bloody punishment to rise up around the executioner and splatter onto the stage. And should any opponent be near Pyramid Head when the attack is performed, they will be swallowed up by the bubbling guilt while they take a small bit of damage. After a brief moment, this guilt will then materialize into a rusted cage as the liquid hardens, trapping the opponent inside as they float off the ground and forcing them to mash their attack button should they wish to escape. This command grab will act as a pseudo-bury, as the higher your opponent's percent is, the longer and harder they will need to mash in order to escape the cage, as any attack with a certain amount of launch power will break the effect. Thanks to this, the player is capable of catching opponents at unique angles and setting up bury combos that no other character can. And don't think you're safe in the air either, as Misty Remains can also be used while airborne, although the attack method is a bit different. Instead of plunging the Great Knife into the ground, this version of Misty Remains will have Pyramid Head perform a huge aerial slash with his iconic blade, with the slash itself leaving a huge bloody trail to signify its unique properties. And should an opponent be in the blade's path, the Bloody Cleave will wrap them in a wave of punishment before sticking them in the same cage as the grounded version. This version of the cage will remain suspended in the air, and as long as the cage persists, the player can not only use the cage as a makeshift platform, but also a wall to block incoming attacks should they be playing with more than 2 people. Although it should be noted that standing on the cage will weaken its duration and make it easier for the opponent to break out. Regardless, it's more than durable enough to set up a variety of attacks, including easy spikes if you manage to catch your opponent off screen, and thanks to the huge range of the initial slash, you might even be able to snag opponents below the ledge. Both the ground and the aerial version of Misty Remains can only catch one opponent at a time, with the grounded version hitting on both sides of Pyramid Head and allowing the executioner to snag get-up options and opponents trying to roll behind him. But it should be noted that faster characters might be able to outrun the puddle if they predict it correctly. Because of this, it can be quite difficult for Pyramid Head to snag some of the game's more slippery characters. But thankfully, there's more to Misty Remains than a simple command grab, as it sports a unique follow-up attack that can be used to catch opponents either trying to run away, or pressure you from outside of the grab's range. Decaying Guilt. If the player chooses to hold the B button during Misty Remains' startup animation, Pyramid Head will immediately follow up the stab by dragging the Great Knife forward, with this powerful action causing the pool of bloody punishment to be launched forward as a grounded projectile that will deal a solid chunk of damage to the first opponent in its path, greatly improving the move's range in exchange for a slower recovery and losing its ability to catch opponents on both sides of the executioner. But this isn't any ordinary projectile. Once the projectile makes contact with an opponent, their body will become coated in a layer of punishment, and over the next 4 seconds, this punishment will begin to harden, slowing the opponent's movement speed and greatly increasing their gravity. Once 4 seconds have elapsed, the punishment will lock the opponent in pants and force them into a bury state, leaving them wide open to incoming damage in the same vein as Misty Remains. And should the opponent reach their 4-second limit when in the air, they'll become stuck the moment they touch the ground. Getting caught by this projectile attack can turn an offensive push into a struggle for survival, as it might seem next to impossible to run away from the executioner once your sins start crawling up your back. But as this is a fighting game, there is of course a way for your opponent to avoid the effects of decaying guilt altogether. Should your opponent hit you with a physical attack of any kind, regardless of its damage, the guilt will disappear and the opponent's speed and gravity will return to normal, with this creating a dangerous scramble for both sides that could lead to some chaotic outcomes. Most characters will need to get within Pyramid Head's melee range to clear this effect, meaning they'll need to put themselves at considerable risk, thanks in part to the executioner's very powerful attacks and grab game. But at the same time, the risk of getting locked up by their guild and taking potentially fatal damage is just as bad, if not worse. Players that get hit by this attack will need to keep a level head and act quickly, and do keep in mind that decaying guilt can only be performed while Pyramid Head is grounded, so you can potentially jump over the attack and punch the executioner if it's thrown out haphazardly. But don't expect projectiles to save you if things come down to the wire. Moving on to his side special, Pyramid Head will show off his position as one of Silent Hill's highest ranking monsters, as he uses one of its lowly residents to attack his opponent, providing him with a versatile projectile option that can stuff offensive pressure or give the executioner a chance to approach. Lying Manifestation. With this, Pyramid Head will kneel down and dig his hand into the ground, creating a puddle of punishment as he does so, and after a brief animation, the executioner will pull out a lying figure from the puddle and return to his standing position. Pyramid Head will remain in this pose for as long as the player holds the B button, and once the B button is released, the executioner will toss the lying figure forward into the closest opponent, with it acting as a physical projectile until it touches the ground. This quote-unquote projectile sports a high level of priority, allowing the figure to tank incoming projectiles or even work as a protective wall if the executioner holds him out in front of him. But on top of its high priority, the figure can also serve as a great distraction. Should the lying figure not make contact with an opponent or their shield, it won't simply disappear, but will instead get up on the ground and spray acid in the direction of the closest opponent, dealing small damage before it disappears in a cloud of fog. This attack method is the same one used by the lying figure in Silent Hill 2, and once struck, opponents will be inflicted with a damage over time effect that will last for a total of 6 seconds. Opponents can knock the lying figure down prematurely by hitting with an attack of any kind, but the time they're dedicating to the lying figure is time they aren't dedicating to Pyramid Head, making his approach all that much easier. Moving on to his recovery special, Pyramid Head will utilize the power of the fog world to move across the screen and strike his opponents when they least expect it, with this move combining 2 types of recovery into one devastating attack. Guillotine Drop. With this, Pyramid Head will double back and begin to walk away from his opponent, his body disappearing into a wave of fog and becoming intangible. And after a brief moment, the executioner will then reappear from another cloud of fog, all while performing a falling slash that will cut through anything in his path. Pyramid Head will be locked into this animation until he touches the ground or the blast zone below it, and should any opponent be caught in the damage path, they'll be spiked and dragged down with the executioner himself, with this spike working much the same way as Ike and Krom's Aether. But unlike say attacks, the initial teleport means the spike can come from almost anywhere, meaning that incredible potency can be difficult to predict and might spell your opponent's doom when they least expect it. Just be sure you aren't too obvious with your positioning and you should be fine, as while you are fully armed until you touch the ground, the recovery time of this move can end up getting you punished if it's blocked or it whiffs. Finally, for his down special, Pyramid Head will make use of a deadly command grab to capitalize on his offensive pressure and punish his opponents for their sins, and compared to the utility-focused Misty Remains, this one will cut straight to the point. Execution Sentence. With this, Pyramid Head will extend his free hand in front of himself, but instead of going for a simple grab, the executioner will instead choose to unleash waves of sin that will pulse outward, drawing in any nearby foes like a magnet. Once an opponent has been drawn to his grasp, Pyramid Head will then proceed to lift them off the ground and lock them within a trap of rusted guilt, leaving them unable to do anything but look on in horror as the executioner will then lift his great knife and run them through. This stab will do very heavy damage, and to add extra insult to injury, Pyramid Head will twist his blade through his opponent's body before violently pulling outwards, the force of this outward slash causing the trap to break apart and launch the struck foe away with some very heavy force. This is, by far, Pyramid Head's scariest kill confirm, and the main option you're looking to perform once your slow approach pays off. And depending on your current level of resonating guilt, this move's potency will increase dramatically, as the range and pull strength of the initial wave will improve with each level of guilt acquired. This, along with the other boosts provided by his character mechanic, can make this Pyramid Head's single strongest kill confirm, and one of the easiest ways to turn a match around, as a fully boosted executioner sentence can deal upwards of 40 plus damage and confirm kills at very early percents, and that percent threshold only goes down the closer you can catch your opponent to the ledge. Despite this, however, the recovery time of this move is its biggest detriment, and while it can draw opponents in from quite a distance away, the opponent can still perform attacks out of this action, meaning they might just be able to use your strongest tool against you if you aren't careful. Next is the final smash, and for this, Pyramid Head will force you to play on his home turf as he drags his opponent, kicking and screaming, into a world formed from their own subconscious for some proper punishment. This is Lost to the Fog. When the final smash starts, a large cloud of fog will roll onto the battlefield behind Pyramid Head, and in a flash, a series of wires will extend from the fog and attempt to latch onto the closest opponent, drawing them into the depths of the fog cloud and locking them into a cinematic final smash. As the fog begins to subside, it will be shown that the opponent has been dragged into the town of Silent Hill, their bodies constrained within a prison of rusted metal and bloody gill as they lie at the center of an intersection, with the executioner himself appearing behind them with his blade at the ready. Things are not so silent, however. This event has attracted the attention of some of the town's more rowdy occupants, as several monsters from Silent Hill's past will appear, looking to take Pyramid Head's kill for themselves. Paying these monsters no mind, Pyramid Head will raise his great knife and perform an enormous vertical slash, with the blade seemingly cutting through the veil of fog as the world of Silent Hill begins to melt away and the stage comes back into view. At this point, the end of the final smash will play out in two different ways depending on whether or not the opponent is over 100% damage. If the opponent is below 100% damage when the final smash concludes, they will reappear in a knockdown state as Pyramid Head stands over them, with the executioner taking a few steps back and putting the player in the position to okizeme their caught foe. But if the opponent is over 100% damage, only Pyramid Head will reform as the fog disappears, his blade dripping with rust as the opponent is immediately KO'd. What happens to the opponent's character is left up to interpretation, but whatever their fate, all that can be said is that they belong to Silent Hill now, and they will wander that endless nightmare for the rest of eternity. For his victory theme, Pyramid Head will be played out in the next match by a rather unexpected song for such a menacing creature, but one that fits the theming of the games he comes from. This song, known as the Theme of Laura Reprise, will play on loop until the player cycles back to the character select screen, its somber melody slowly melting away the terrifying presence of the character it comes attached to, and showing that while he might be imposing, Pyramid Head is not a creature Victory animation number 1 will show Pyramid Head stabbing his great knife into the ground, his grip on the blade slowly loosening as he turns his head back to look at the camera. After a brief moment, Pyramid Head's body will then begin to fade away into a deep fog, as it is time for him to rest until the town needs him once again. Or, at least, until someone needs to be reminded of their humanity. Victory animation number 2 will show Pyramid Head slowly lumbering past the screen, a lying figure being carried in one hand as the sound of the body scraping fills the air. Paying the camera no mind, Pyramid Head will continue to lumber further off screen, all before he and his victim are nowhere to be seen. Finally, victory animation number 3 will show Pyramid Head standing before a series of characters stuck within rusted cages, his blade to his side as the world around him begins to melt into the rusted nightmare that is the Otherworld. This is a reference to Misty Day, Remains of the Judgment, the very painting that sparked Pyramid Head's creation in James' subconscious, and one of the most iconic images featuring our favorite executioner. And on occasion, you might just spot a familiar figure amongst those trapped within the cages. Taunt number 1 will have Pyramid Head hold his hand out in front of himself, all before reeling back and banging on his helmet. This animation is a reference to the way that Pyramid Head is shown to sense his surroundings when we first meet him in the Woodside Apartments, with it also adding on to the monster's creepy factor in a PG manner. Those that have played Silent Hill 2 will understand what that means, but for those who haven't, don't worry about it. Taunt number 2 will have Pyramid Head take a battle stance, all while his quote-unquote tongue extends from his helmet in a taunting manner. This animation is in reference to an aspect of Pyramid Head's design that not many people seem to remember exists, as no iteration of Pyramid Head is shown to have such an appendage outside of his original Silent Hill 2 appearance. Well, at least ones that weren't cut from the final product. Finally, Taunt number 3 will be quite a surprise to those who know nothing about the franchise, but a welcome one to those who do, as Mira, the Shiba Inu from Silent Hill 2's infamous dog ending, will appear from behind Pyramid Head and bark at him. Noticing the dog at his side, Pyramid Head will stab his great knife into the ground, all before bending down, picking Mira up, and petting her back. After a couple of extra barks from Mira, Pyramid Head will then let the dog go before drawing his blade once again, all before the dog disappears in a puff of smoke. Joke endings are something that are considered a tradition in the Silent Hill franchise, and next to the reoccurring UFO endings, Silent Hill 2's dog ending is one of the most iconic ones in the entire series. And as a result, you're out of your mind if you thought I would make a moveset for a Silent Hill character and not reference its silly side in at least some fashion. Pyramid Head's colors will be a combination of several aspects of the Silent Hill series, with half of his colors referencing the various characters featured in Silent Hill 2, while the other half consists of references to various monsters that relate to the Executioner in some fashion, with some of these references being quite a deep cut for those who aren't familiar with Masahiro Ito and his various creations. Color number 1 is Pyramid Head's standard appearance, with this featuring his iconic rust red pyramid helmet and beige butcher's attire. This outfit combination is based on the Executioners of Silent Hill's past, and it's an appearance that would stand the test of time. Color number 2 will dye both Pyramid Head's helmet and Butcher's outfit a jet black, with this outfit being a reference to Saint Apostle, an alternative take on the Executioner created by the monster's original designer, Masahiro Ito. This iteration of Pyramid Head is separate from the Silent Hill universe, and while this creature is seen wielding a unique weapon, Pyramid Head in Smash will continue to use his Great Knife and Great Spear regardless of what color scheme the player uses. Color number 3 is based on another one of Ito's alternate Pyramid Heads, with this creature being known as the White Hunter. This will give Pyramid Head a white helmet along with a rust red butcher's attire, although his weapons will remain the same. Color number 4 will change Pyramid Head's butcher's attire to a forest green, with this color referencing the main character of Silent Hill 2 and the one whose subconscious birthed the original Pyramid Head into existence, James Sunderland. Color number 5 will change Pyramid Head's butcher's attire to a crimson red, with this color referencing the outfit of Maria, one of Silent Hill 2's side characters, and the one that the monster is shown to pursue relentlessly. I wonder why that is. Color number 6 will change Pyramid Head's outfit to a light blue, with this referencing Eddie Dombrowski, another one of Silent Hill 2's side characters, and one whose fate is tied to Pyramid Head in more ways than you might think. Color number 7 will change Pyramid Head's attire to a bright yellow, with this outfit being yet another reference to Mira, the mastermind behind the events of Silent Hill 2. So long as you put stock into the dog ending, that is. Finally, color number 8 is a special outfit known as the Corrupted Executioner, with this being an outfit that Pyramid Head can use in Dead by Daylight. The costume is designed to be a blend of the original Pyramid Head and the Boogeyman, reimagining a Pyramid Head that would appear in Silent Hill Homecoming and the Silent Hill movies. And since it keeps most of the Executioner's original features intact, I felt this would be better than including the Boogeyman outright. When it comes to discussing iconic video game franchises, and the potential they could add to a celebration of video games like Smash, Silent Hill is such a difficult topic to cover. This franchise touches upon topics that are completely like anything in Smash, and the places these topics are shown to go are fairly dark at best, and completely miserable at worst. Silent Hill 2, on its own, broke me in a lot of places, and dealing with its messages and themes for the first time was something I didn't think I'd have a problem with, especially since I'd watched people play through the game multiple times. But I was wrong, and that's probably why this video is more than a year behind. Pyramid Head, despite being such an iconic part of the Silent Hill franchise, is a fairly small part of the game he appears in, but regardless of where the series goes in the future, there's no doubt in my mind that Konami will absolutely push for his inclusion in Smash if Silent Hill ever had a chance to join the franchise. And given how many Silent Hill projects are coming out in the coming years, it's a franchise that's going to be in the public eye by the time the next Smash comes around. While I think it's more than possible to include Pyramid Head in a family-friendly game like Smash, and have the character work, I personally feel there's far too many red flags attached to the franchise for him to ever be given a chance. Even if that's the case, the potential of having Solid Snake, Simon Belmont, and Pyramid Head playable in the same game would be a huge deal to a lot of people, and if this ever does have a chance to happen at some point in the future, I'll definitely give him a try. For now, however, I think I'll simply be content with this content and enjoy it for what it is, all until the day where that town clouds my restless dreams. If you like what you saw, be sure to like and comment. It not only helps with the algorithm, but also gives me a much needed boost in morale. If you want to see more, be sure to subscribe. And if you want to jump right into my other movesets that I've made, follow the link in my description to go to my Challenger Concept playlist. Just be sure you press that little bell icon, as doing so will leave you assured that you'll never miss a future upload. For now, I've been Felicia Fan, and I hope you have a good one.